we have listened to different types of audio through the years has been presented to us in many different ways. Whether you're carelessly listening to a podcast like this, or singing along to your favorite song at home. Have you ever stopped to think about how neat it is that we have the ability to record ourselves? To just be able to hear whatever we want, whenever we want, thanks to the progression of media and culture? But then, how are we able to do that? Who is responsible for this creation? Let's rewind the track through time. Further than the CDs in 1979, cassette tapes in 1965, and even the first 8 tracks made in 1963, and even further than the record players. And take a look at the first device ever invented to record a voice and then have it played back at you. Let's take a look at the history of the phonograph.
You're listening to the WJHS 91.5 The Eagle. Welcome to Media in the Making, a podcast where we look at the evolution of media from 1600 all the way to present day 2022. In this podcast series, we ask, how have different forms of media evolved and changed culture? Media in the Making, where media and culture are always changing. Now, let's take a step back in time.
Back in 1843, Samuel Morse created the phonograph. He was not to be given all the credit, though. There are many different people who all contributed different principles to the phonograph. Thomas Edison is one you can refer back to, though. He further developed the phonograph into the invention of the gramophone. The phonograph was a cylindrical-based device that was able to record any sound and play it back, while the gramophone was a disc-based device that was able to record and play back any sound. The main difference between the two is the look of the device. It was considered to be one of the best inventions at the time. It changed the game when it came to music and culture.
One example is the vocabulary in the music industry. Words like record are still used today when describing an album an artist puts together. This comes from when records were the only way of listening to music and the language has stuck. For example, there is a Grammy Award titled Record of the Year, which is one of the biggest awards that can be won. You can also hear A-side and B-side songs a lot. This is a reference to when artists had to separate their records into 2 sides to fit everything on the vinyl disc. Typically, the A-side is the side with the more popular music, while the B-side is usually not as well known on a large scale. You also have the terms EP and LP. LP means a long-playing record and is the equivalent to a current album. They typically have 10 to 12 tracks and last anywhere from 30 to 50 minutes. EP means extended play, and even though this may be a bit confusing, it's referring to an extended single, which is only one song. And EPs typically have 3 to 6 songs and are significantly shorter than an LP or album. Music began to popularize, and the award shows that came along with them began to grow even more. Music award shows began to grow in the media as people were talking about them and were spreading it all over the media, which began more scandals and cancel culture. The music industry is a very brutal place to be in, and you have to have tough skin. Technology and music began to grow and thrive at the same time. So, when something scandalous happened, you couldn't just dust it under the rug. You were dragged to shreds by the media and people.
Over time, people wanted to take their music with them and not drag around their record player. Then in 1963, 8 tracks were invented, and they influenced how we listen to music greatly. Now, you could be on the go and still listen to the songs with the small discs. The popularity of this concept had influenced the idea of people being able to leave the house while being able to listen to the songs that they had recorded onto the 8 tracks. They would record the music on the 8 tracks and would listen to them whenever they wanted, wherever they were. Soon, more changes began with how we listen to music. 8 tracks became cassettes. Cassette tapes were recordings of both video and audio. That means you can record not only your favorite song, but you can also have a visual of the band playing it. Those lasted about 30 years until CDs were invented. CDs were like cassette tapes, however took up less space and were easier to carry around.
In today's world, we now have more ways to listen to music than ever. Streaming is the most current way. We now have access to more music than ever with streaming platforms. With one monthly payment, you can listen to all of the music you want. This has made listening to music cheaper from a consumer's point of view, as well as more accessible and a bigger component of culture. We know and expect to hear new music as soon as it's released just because it's a click away.
With having this in high demand, people started to become a little more greedy with time. Slowly, people wanted more and more. Because of this new technology at their fingertips, it was natural to start wanting more and more. There is another component that comes with this product: music. The only way this product would continue to thrive is if people made more music to keep up with the growth of the phonograph. That's about when more and more people started coming out with more songs like Au Clair de la Lune. This was one of the first songs ever created with the phonograph.
Overall, music and the culture around it have changed so much over time, including the way we listen to it. But because of Edison's invention, you're able to listen to this podcast right now. History will repeat itself, and music and the technology used will continue to evolve. Anyway, that's today's episode of Phonograph Today.
Media in the Making is brought to you by WJHS 91.5 and the Eagle Tech Academy Mass Media classes. Media in the Making, teaching you about the evolution of media throughout history and its effects on culture. For more from the students, this podcast series is on the 91.5 website, WJHS915.org. Thank you for joining.